Previously on the Beam Chronicles.
You got me a rock?
That's your boner rock.
I always kept my 49th bus present tied around my neck. If you happen to see anything even slightly suspicious, just pull a tube out of your back.
Why?
Well, I already have medical pushing your alerts to my earpiece. When you yank a tube, they'll notify me. I'll come down here and hopefully catch Howie or whoever's doing it red-handed.
You would either have to be an idiot or a genius, probably a little of both, to protest everything Beam stood for. Have you been here all night?
Mostly. It's a safe place to observe. Trust me.
He glanced up at the window, then briefly smiled with just his lips.
You never know what might come crashing through that window to remind you of who you are.
He gestured across the hall. The window behind his head shattered. Wrong window. Leper's purpose all along, through every breakout, was to remind me of my father, to make me contend with my lack of change, to drive my feelings of isolation from Charlie and Jaxon, and to push me toward a pact with Howie. Precisely all of the things Leper had done.
Tell me, Equalizer of Beam, what is the fucking difference?
Then his head was ungrouped.
There's your difference, motherfucker.
These are the Beam Chronicles, with your host, MJ Dooney. Book 2, Compromise. Chapter 19, Jaxon Teaque.
Due to a touch of irresponsible intoxication, I didn't remember much about my birthday. Other than the part where Charlie and I made out to make Peter look stupid, because that was hilarious. But I heard a lot about it from my partners the next day, and I was admittedly unhappy that I'd once again hung Sydney out to dry during a leper attack. Sid, luckily, seemed completely unfazed by my failure to help, mostly because he was enraged by the discovery that Leper's entire purpose all along was to be Prophet's tool to drive us apart. Apparently, in Sydney's eyes, Howie all but admitted it. Which made it weird that Prophet was so ballistic and angry about the breakout. Putting on a good show, completely possible, heck, not even that uncharacteristic, and maybe part of it had to do with Micah endangering Howie himself. But considering his general ability to sidestep any hint of trouble over the years, it seemed unlikely that Prophet was really in that much danger. Leper's mechanism for strength was ostensibly the same as Sydney's, only weaker, so since Howie could stop Sid, obviously he could have handled Leper if it came to it. More likely, he was so furious because Leper jumped through the wrong window. According to Sid, Prophet cryptically implied a few times that something was coming in through the window across the hall. Then in came Micah through the wrong one. You wouldn't consider it important in the grand scheme which window the brute hopped through, but for a guy like Prophet, so meticulously micromanaging every single detail he was permitted to in every contrived situation he built, it was a monumental mistake. The disobedience was the issue. Obviously, if he told Micah to come in one way and Micah came in another way, that alone would piss Howie off more than the fact that his scheme was not just a failure, but an exposed failure. In any case, Howie had Leper shipped to Beam West. The logic he gave to the ranks and the press was that blatantly someone at HQ had taken a special interest in releasing Micah single, and while the investigation into the identity of that particular person would continue, whoever it was wasn't in California, so in the meanwhile, Leper would not escape again. Beam West was the farthest away, and furthermore the only branch that had the technology, cryo-freezers, formidable enough to contain him since we still didn't know how to kill him. He also had a few weeks until his head came back, so it wasn't even like he was hard to transfer, even across the country. I carried him myself, or what was left of him. I flew out to California for a day, dragging his slowly regenerating corpse behind me, passed it off to Lane Rector, and washed my hands of him. For good, as far as I knew. Maybe Howie really was innocent in solving the problem. Maybe he was just discarding a wayward soldier. There was a time I'd care to find out which, but now, I mean, did it really matter? Either way, Prophet was winning. Leper was a popsicle. Plus, Lane's problem now. All it took was a few uneventful weeks to erase Leper from memory. Charlie, Sid, and I got on as well as ever before. No distortion in our group dynamic, no waver in our loyalty. Hurdle cleared. A month since the party. You wouldn't even notice a difference in operations if you knew to look for one. That's how brief of a hiccup the whole reoccurring ordeal turned out to be. He was like an agonizing zit, harmless, yet obviously persisting on our faces for nearly a year. Then one day he got on the wrong side of Howard Prophet and popped. It was like a bump in the road, a flat tire, inconvenient but already forgotten. Leper was a human being, used as a means to an end by Satan. And once he'd failed to fulfill his feeble purpose to the game, he was tossed aside as garbage, frozen, removed. So ruthless and yet so common at Beam. Hell, we did it every day. Leper just took longer to pop than most.
7 o'clock is the real one, JT.
Charlie called out to me as I hoisted all 12 multiples of the Gemini anomaly 20 feet in the air.
He 6 is different.
I'll just get all of them, I grunted distractedly, dropping them to the ground as I telekinetically snatched the arrow fired at my face by the centaur, whizzed it around my head twice, then sent it to impale all 4 of his legs through the bone. First the left 2, then a quick U-turn, then the right 2. Sagittarius collapsed as 11 of the Gemini clones vanished upon impact. The real one, at my 7 o'clock, just as Charlie told me, writhed around in pain. 2 broken legs there, 4 for Sagittarius. Both would live. I spun around just in time to see Sydney grab the anthropomorphic bull by the top of his head with one hand, the anthropomorphic lion around the neck with his other, and slam the 2 into each other, knocking both unconscious. Then he reached over to his back, fumbling around for the red man with mechanical claws and legs who was repetitively pinching him, and flipped him over his head, slamming him down onto the pile of beasts he had already incapacitated.
I have a lion and a cow and a lobster.
He took roll call, pointing to the body of each.
Is that significant to you, Jaxon? I still do not understand this pattern.
Leo, Taurus, and Cancer. I took down Gemini and Sagittarius. Charlie? We looked toward her just as the idiot, Libra, I guess, balancing on one finger and spinning in circles, got flurried for 2 seconds and collapsed out of his perch into a gasping, writhing mess, coughing up blood. She regrouped closer to us.
So I got him. That guy over there put his head through the brick wall when he charged me and missed.
She casually tipped her head toward the limp body of Ares, stuck up to his shoulders in the building behind us.
And then some creepy mermaid goat mutant sprung out of the sewers, but he went down pretty quickly for a big guy.
She pointed to her left at the pulp of Capricorn, who smelled about as bad as you'd expect a sewer-dwelling goatfish would smell.
After that, Aerial Scorpio mech suit man came sweeping in, firing lasers out of his tail, so I ungrouped that, then the jet propulsion system he had. Oh, and that's when I paused for a bit and said, 7 o'clock's the real one, JT. He 6 is different. Anyway, he crashed right there.
And she pointed to her right at the smoking remains.
Scorpions cannot fly.
Damn, that's not fair, Charlie. You're too fast. I didn't even notice Aries or Capricorn or Scorpio. You got 4 of them? That's twice as many as I did.
Shit, JT, I didn't realize we were competing. I would have taken all 9.
You could count the multiplicative 1 as 12, were you so inclined, my friend.
And you're keeping us dry.
She pointed to the invisible dome overhead, covered with droplets, a Teaque interaction force field umbrella I held up habitually for the whole bust. Sydney piped in.
Yes, Eval said the Zodiacs picked a rainy day intentionally for their attack in order to maximize effectiveness of 2 other anomalies. You could take partial credit for those.
No, come on, stop patronizing me. I'm not taking credit until they're properly busted. Charlie, you're done, all right? There's 3 more, so you get 1, Sydney. I'll take the other 2.
Sorry, no dice, buddy. Virgo, Aquarius, and Pisces just turned themselves in while my team was raiding their base. Final score is Charlie, 4 Sydney, 3 Murphy, 3 Jaxon 2.
What? Why do you get the forfeits?
Because I'm the boss. That's why.
Aw, come on, Murph. I bet Virgo was hot. I wanted to see her in action.
Virgo the Virgin? Look in a mirror, Phil.
Hey, fuck you.
I think she was just the leader anyway, you know?
Murphy said, refocusing our conversation.
No powers or nothing. Just orchestrating the attack, coordinating and shit.
She did a marvelous job, didn't she? She distracted us a good 10 seconds. Tactical genius. Tell her nice work.
After she just turned herself in, admitted defeat, I'm not gonna kick her while she's down, Shade.
Can you maybe ask her instead how they fucking found each other? Like, did they have Zodiac anomaly tryouts? Because this seems like a very serendipitous mix of mutants to just happen to band together. Honestly, there's nothing I hate more than theme teams.
Oh, what about insect anomalies, love? I asked, hugging her from behind. She grabbed my forearms, leaned her head onto my collarbone, smiling as we swayed back and forth.
Oh, right. But only because of that fucking dweeb endoskeleton. Yeah, Insect Anomalies 1, Theme Teams 2.
12 is all then. There are no more of these.
Sydney asked, scooping the bodies of Leo, Taurus, and Cancer off the ground and stacking them onto his shoulder.
I still do not understand the pattern.
Such an Aquarius, I accused, with literally zero clue what characteristics an Aquarius supposedly had.
Woo! 12 and 1 bust. We ever get 12 at once before, Murphy? I think that's a record.
Oh, sure, but kind of helps when they start turning themselves in, don't it?
Murphy had a point. This was becoming more and more common, anomalies catching one glimpse of us and surrendering without a struggle. Come to think of it, it required something rare, like a 12-on-3 scenario or a truckload of arrogant overconfidence just to get one to stand up to Ava at all anymore. I think in a weird way it had something to do with the changes we enacted, our new world order or whatever. The fact that we always won, regardless of circumstances or strategies, broadly in public, without even so much as a moral defeat, made resisting us seem pretty blatantly stupid. Combine that with the fact that we stopped equalizing people suddenly, and Anomaly's best, most rational option for survival was peacefully turning himself into Beam. People were less afraid of us, but the fear of the Beam from yesteryear lingered with enough prevalence that they'd take what they could get in light of the horrible alternatives. So in a backward sort of way, our mercy was deformed into a weapon, and utilizing that weapon ensured their broken, apathetic surrender. The three of us were always instrumental in securing this systematic criminalization of genetics, luck, and exceptionality. At least now we'd also assured nobody was dying over it anymore. It was cleaner, maybe even nicer, but I selfishly didn't like it much better. Since Clifton Hodge died earlier this year, nobody had dared to approach challenging Beam, politically or nonviolently, so our only hope at outside resistance was someone with the right amount of physical power to stand up to us. I craved it just to make a statement, to tell other anomalies not to give up so easily, or maybe even inspire us not to give up ourselves. I mean, you can say what you would about Leper, there was plenty to say, but at least he had, I don't know, conviction, determination. At least when you hit him, he got up swinging. At least he'd never throw himself at our feet and beg for mercy. He had the mindset, the grit, just lacked the muscle. Whatever. It was pointless to dream anymore. If a person that strong really existed, we would have found them by now. And anyone with the potential to grow into it was either safely locked up in the dungeons, too psychotic or reckless to pose a coordinated threat, surrendering themselves for processing before they got too scary to ignore, or in 3 cases, on the payroll. We were basically done with it all. It was just a matter of showing up from there. What do you call that feeling you get when you realize you're about to win a game and you didn't really want to play in the first place? When we got back to HQ, we briskly handed off the Zodiacs to the Dungeoneers and headed into the building toward the main elevator, preparing ourselves for the worst part of any big bust, the press conference. The lobby was currently undergoing heavy repairs, patching up the cracks and craters in the marble floors and the walls created by Sydney's bout with Single 4 weeks ago. Sid began fulfilling the habit he'd made of personally apologizing to each member of the crew for his part in the destruction, to which they'd all just smile and nod politely. It was only after he finished and rejoined me and Charlie, resting her head on my shoulder and folding her arms as we waited for the elevator, that the alarm started to sound in my ear.
Medical alert. Medical alert. Emergency attention required for subject Tyler Foon. Medical alert. Medical alert.
I instantly thought of a conversation we had months ago, about him intentionally sounding the alarm to warn me of something suspicious. Could this be such a deliberate warning? Even if it wasn't, even if he was just hurt, I had to check on him. I could help him faster than medical could, and I didn't want to rely on Prophet to bring him back if he died again. I needed to make haste in case it was serious, but it would be a difficult thing to explain to Sydney and Charlie. Shoot. Guys, Actually, I have to go.
What?
She lifted her head off my shoulder and stared at me, cocking an eyebrow. I just gotta go. Sorry, it's an emergency.
JT, what's an emergency? We got a presser in 15 minutes. You can't just take off.
Peter, can we postpone?
Peter's not on this call, Jaxon.
Phil's voice regretfully informed me.
I tried him like 5 times before the bus started. I didn't get a response. Apparently he doesn't like us anymore.
Damn it.
Jaxon, what's going on? What kind of emergency is it? Who's in trouble? Your mom? Caraway? Who is it? What can I do?
I winced at her, deliberating momentarily if it was worth the hassle of being honest. I decided it was that we'd committed to telling each other the truth, but before I could fess up, she read my mind.
Shit. It's Foon, isn't it?
I nodded somberly.
Tyler Foon. Has he escaped? If there is trouble with Foon, why were Charlie and I not informed?
He didn't escape. There's no trouble with him. He's in trouble, right?
She asked me so level it stung, like she was trying too hard not to accuse me of something, trying to hide that I was letting her down just by caring. I nodded some more.
Sorry, friends, I do not understand why this is of concern to us.
It's not. Just me.
Oh, shut the fuck up. Don't say shit like that. Of course it's our concern. If you care, I care. Don't be so, I don't know, selfish with your problems.
Charlie, listen, I had his medical alerts pushed to my earpiece so he could pull a plug in case he saw something suspicious, which means it's possible he's not even hurt. He's just trying to give me a heads up. I have to respond to that. I told him I would, and I know you don't trust him, but...
I trust you, all right? No, I don't trust Foon. I don't like him. I don't understand for the life of me what you see in him, and I think you're a big stupid idiot, but I trust you enough that all that doesn't matter. You know what you have to do, and I'll stand by you no matter what, even if I don't agree. As long as you don't get killed, go help your fucking buddy, or whatever the hell he is. We'll hold the press conference. Nobody will bother starting without you anyway.
I was befuddled by her sympathetic understanding, and she blushed, subtly smiling, punching me in the arm.
Stop! Why are you looking at me like that?
I don't know, sorry. Thanks. I'll be right back before you can miss me, love. And I kissed her forehead, then looked to Sydney, raising my eyebrows in silent request for his permission.
I concur with Charlie.
He assured me uncertainly, gently nodding.
I trust your judgment, but do not hesitate to notify us the instant you require assistance, my friend. I cannot get there as fast as she, but I will make significant haste.
No comms down there.
Charlie reminded us.
But I'll six you the whole time, all right? If it's a Foon thing, surely a tender touch is required. Sydney and I being there will just cock it up, but if you need us, give me a sign. Touch your bone or rock, I'll six it.
Got it, I will. Thank you, both of you, for understanding. Hopefully this goes quick. Sydney pried open the elevator doors for me, and I was about to hop into the shaft and plummet to the level of the dungeon, but just before I jumped, Charlie called my name.
JT?
Yes, love? I would never get over the way she twitched her mouth into a flash of a smile and blushed ever so slightly as she rolled her eyes whenever I called her love. It was half the reason I did it.
Whatever this is, don't die.
I smiled, spun around backwards, saluted them, and fell for a mile. Once I reached the bottom, I teaked the doors apart and flew down the hall of row 1 like a bullet. The familiar faces, the gallery of idiots passed by my peripherals in a blur, but I couldn't be bothered to pay attention to them. I had to get to Foon. I had to help him with whatever it was he was facing that caused him to pull a tube. Even if it just fell out accidentally and he couldn't get it back in, but especially if it was him trying to warn me that the devil unleashed another of his wretched demons. It didn't matter why in the slightest. If he was unplugged, he was dying. And that familiar feeling had already begun to well up inside of me, that icy black hole of a force in the depth of my stomach that locked me in place when I was holding the cars underwater on the Detweiler Bridge. I had to save his life. I had to. But a few seconds before I reached his lockup, Foon stepped out of it, in less need of a savior than he'd been in years. I screeched to a halt and our eyes met. I couldn't tell who was more dumbfounded by seeing the other, but that didn't matter. It was a competition that could be judged later on. Tyler Foon was out of his cell. And not just out. Somebody got him wet. He was blue.
Thank you for listening to the Beam Chronicles, a fiction podcast written and produced by me, MJ Dooney. You know the drill by now. 5 stars on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever. I assume you all have by now. Also, social media stuff. Follow me on Instagram, which is blank. TikTok, which is a little less blank, but I'm too old to understand the platform. Twitter, which is both blank and toxic. And YouTube, which I actually figured out how to automatically update, but it's literally just the same episode you're listening to right now. These outros are getting kind of boilerplate. And when they're not these days, I'm just like peppering in jokes to my daughter. She's an adult, don't worry, she can listen. She's heard me say fuck before. But anyway, I did want to take a moment to say a more sincere and heartfelt thanks to all the people listening to this show. It is a passion project for sure. It's sort of like a glimpse into my soul, I think. And I hope the passion shines through, which might be why you're sticking with it. But I started working on this story in the mid-2000s because I was a nerd and Marvel Comics were pissing me off. And the fact that it's now, like, consumable and being consumed by people I don't even know and people I know who I never thought would be interested in the story, it's overwhelming. It's something I always have held very precious in my heart, and now there are strangers who know Charlie and Jaxon and Sydney, and they exist outside of my heart now, and that's just incredibly powerful to me. My audience is admittedly quite small. I think if you told me when I started this audio drama adventure like a year or so ago that I'd be here in January 2025 pulling a good 50 listeners per episode, part of me would be like, dude, why are you working so hard on this? But I think the fact that I am working so hard on it is like proof positive that it means a lot to me. And I guess if you're one of those 50 consistent listeners, even if you're like a Russian robot just scraping the internet for content, I can't articulate enough how grateful I am that you're engaged with my silly little story. It's vital to me. So if you're getting a kick out of it, my purpose as a storyteller is being upheld. So yeah, thank you. Email me if you want to chat. Nobody ever does, but I'd love to hear some encouragement or criticism or whatever. beamchronicles@gmail.com. All music and sound effects were sourced from the Epidemic Sound Library. Special thanks to Sergio Duarte for creating the cover art for the show. And thanks again for listening.